The rain fell in heavy sheets that night, drenching the small town road and blurring every streetlight into a halo of gold. A tiny figure huddled beneath a broken signpost, a puppy, shivering, soaked to the bone, eyes wide with fear. His paws trembled on the cold pavement as cars rushed past, their headlights slicing through the storm, ignoring the small life stranded between them. He didn't understand why his family wasn't there anymore. He didn't understand why the car door had closed, why the voices had faded, why everything that felt safe had vanished. All he knew was one thing. He had to find his way back home. That night began a journey no one could have imagined. 200 miles of loneliness, hunger, danger, and unbreakable hope. When the storm finally broke, morning light crept across the fields. Mud clung to his tiny paws as he wandered through puddles and broken branches. The smell of wet earth filled his nose. Somewhere faint but familiar, the wind carried a scent grass with smoke and something he couldn't name, but it reminded him of home. He followed it. Days passed. The world was big, loud, and cruel. Trucks thundered by. Fields turned into forests, and every shadow seemed to hide something bigger than him. He found scraps near dumpsters, drank from rain puddles, and slept under bushes when the cold became too much. His fur was matted, his ribs showed, but his eyes, those soft brown eyes, still carried a spark, a memory of warmth. Somewhere far away, a little boy named Ethan was crying into his pillow. He clutched a chewed-up blue leash and whispered, "Come home, Max. Please." Ethan's parents had looked for days. Posters were stapled to trees. Phone calls made, hope slowly draining from every word. They told him maybe Max had found another family. Maybe someone kind had taken him in. But Ethan shook his head. He'll come back. He knows the way. And somehow Max did. One afternoon, as the sun burned low behind the hills, Max limped into a small farming village. His paws were bleeding, his legs stiff. But he refused to stop. The scent had grown faint, but it was still there, like a thread pulling him north. A group of kids spotted him near the market, and one of them ran forward. "Hey, look at this poor thing." Max froze. The voice reminded him of Ethan's, light, curious, kind. But when the girl reached out, he backed away, tail tucked. She frowned. "It's okay, buddy. We won't hurt you." She placed a piece of bread on the ground and stepped back. Max hesitated, then crept forward, sniffed, and devoured it. His stomach growled, his whole body shaking from exhaustion. The girl called her father, who came out wiping his hands on a rag. He crouched down, studying the muddy pup. Poor guy. No collar, no tag. Looks like he's been walking forever. They gave him a bowl of water and an old blanket in the barn. For the first time in weeks, Max felt safe enough to close his eyes. But when dawn came and the barn doors creaked open, Max was gone. The blanket lay empty, with paw prints trailing out toward the road. He had rested just long enough to stand again, because the road home was still calling. The next part of his journey was harder. The weather turned cold again. Frost formed on the edges of the fields, and the rivers began to freeze. Max followed the sun by day and the stars by night. He crossed highways, dodged cars, and once nearly drowned trying to wade through a half-frozen creek. But every time he fell, he forced himself back up. Something deep inside him whispered Ethan's name. In one small town, a truck driver saw him limping along the roadside and pulled over. The man whistled softly, leaning out of the cab. "Hey, little guy, you look lost." Max tilted his head, his ears perking up. "Come here, it's okay." But Max didn't move. He just looked at the man, then at the horizon, and kept walking. The driver watched him disappear into the fog, shaking his head. "That dog's going somewhere. Damn if I don't admire him." Miles later, Max stumbled into a clearing. The trees gave way to open fields, and there was again the smell with smoke and pine. He wagged his tail weakly, almost smiling. He was close. So close. But as night fell, so did the snow. The wind howled through the fields, cold and merciless. Max tried to keep walking, but his legs gave out. He curled up near a rock, snow piling around him, shivering so violently his breath came in gasps. For the first time, the light in his eyes began to fade. And then a sound, faint at first, A whistle, a boy's voice echoing through the snow. Max! Max, where are you? His ears twitched. His eyes flickered open. Could it be? The world blurred, his heartbeat slowed, but that voice, it was his home. He tried to move, to bark, but only a weak whine escaped his throat. The voice came closer. Max! Footsteps crunched through the snow. A flashlight beam cut through the dark and landed right on him. Oh my God! Dad! Dad, it's him! Ethan's voice cracked with disbelief and joy. But as the boy ran forward, Max didn't move. He lay there still, half buried in snow. Ethan dropped to his knees beside him, wrapping his arms around his frozen body. Please, Max, please wake up. And then a faint twitch of a paw. A weak, familiar tail wag. Ethan gasped. Dad, he's alive. The father knelt beside them, wrapping his coat around the trembling dog. Let's get him home. Snow kept falling, heavy and silent, as the man lifted Max's arms. Ethan held the leash close, tears freezing on his cheeks. The road ahead was long, but this time, Max wasn't walking alone. End of section 1. The car sped to the snow-covered back roads, tires crunching over ice. Ethan sat in the back seat, holding Max wrapped in his coat, whispering to him like he could anchor him to life. We're almost home. Boy, just hold on. Max's eyes fluttered open, cloudy with exhaustion, but filled with something deeper, recognition. The same warmth that had carried him across 200 miles flickered again. At home, the house smelled the same. Firewood, cinnamon, the faint scent of Ethan's mom baking something sweet. The moment they stepped through the door, Max lifted his head weakly. The warmth hit him, and a quiet whine escaped his throat. Ethan's mom gasped. Oh, sweetheart! She dropped to her knees, tears running freely. You found him. They laid him beside the fire. Ethan rubbed his fur dry, whispering, You did it, Max. You came home. His father mixed warm milk and honey, feeding him drop by drop. Every few minutes, Max's tail moved, small, steady signs of life returning. Outside, the snowstorm raged on, but inside, time seemed to pause. For the next few days, Max didn't leave Ethan's side. He slept curled up beside the boy's bed, waking only when Ethan stirred. Sometimes, he would nudge Ethan's hand gently, as if to make sure this wasn't a dream. The posters came down. The phone calls stopped. The world moved quietly again. One evening, as the fire crackled, Ethan looked at Max and said softly, You found your way back because you remembered us. His mom smiled faintly. No, honey, he found his way back because he never stopped believing you would be here. There was something sacred in that silence, something only hearts could understand. The bond between them wasn't just love. It was instinct, devotion, and a promise that distance could never break. Weeks passed, and Max grew stronger. His fur regained its shine, his eyes cleared, and the limp in his step faded. But every now and then, when the wind blew just right, he would sit by the window and stare toward the hills. Maybe he remembered the long road, the kindness of strangers, the miles he conquered alone. Maybe he just understood what it meant to never give up. One afternoon, a neighbor knocked on the door holding a piece of mail, a small envelope with dirt smudges and a folded note. Inside was a photograph. Max walking to the village market weeks earlier, taken by the same girl who had fed him bread. On the back, in a child handwriting, were the words, He was brave. I hope he made it home. Ethan smiled and pinned the photo above Max's bed. He did, he whispered. He made it home. As the seasons changed, the story of Max spread across the town. The local paper ran the headline, Lost Puppy Walks 200 Miles to Find His Family. People stopped by to see him, the miracle dog who followed his heart across rivers, highways, and storms. But for Ethan, it wasn't about fame or miracle. It was about something quiet and pure, faith that never gave up. Late one night, Ethan sat on the porch with Max beside him. The stars stretched endlessly above them, the same stars that had once guided Max through the dark. Ethan looked down and said, half smiling, half in awe, You found me, didn't you? Max wagged his tail once, as if answering, I never lost you. The boy leaned closer, pressing his forehead against Max's. The sound of crickets filled the air, soft and steady. The world was peaceful again. And so, the lost puppy who had once trembled under the rain now slept soundly beneath a warm roof, surrounded by the love he never forgot. His journey had ended where it began, in the arms of his family. But to everyone who heard his story, it was more than a tale about a dog finding his way home. It was a reminder that even the smallest heart, when guided by love, can find its way through any distance. And sometimes, courage doesn't look like fighting or running. Sometimes, it looks like a tired puppy walking one more mile toward home. End of story.